Hello, and welcome to today's live reading of Royally Complicated by Gwyn and McNamee, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bit. Chapter 1, Phoenix. The bleach bottle blonde with the picture-perfect white smile bounces out of her seat and to her stiletto-heeled feet the moment we enter the room, pushing out her exposed cleavage in the somehow demure yet still sexual dress in a way I'm sure she thinks is enticing. Many men in my position would fantasize about bending her over the enormous table in front of us and knocking off the beautiful food while banging her until she can't walk tomorrow. But her excitement and obvious willingness to use her body in this situation does nothing for me. It never does. When women throw themselves at you on a daily basis, it eventually loses its appeal. If I weren't forced to be here, I would turn around right now and leave mother and father to handle the lunch with the visiting royal family. King Reginald Dahl lumbers to his feet beside her, his heavy jowls sagging despite the warm smile he bears. The man has always been jovial and pleasant, and under other circumstances I might have actually enjoyed this meeting. But not today, not recognizing the purposes of it. Mother and father, walking just ahead of me, approach him with matching smiles. Your Majesty, your Royal Highness. He extends a hand toward father, who accepts it and shakes with excessive vigor. Always wonderful to see you, Your Majesty. King Reginald turns his attention to Mother and leans in to kiss her on the cheek. Wonderful to see both of you as well. I fight the desire to roll my eyes, all this practiced formality when they're good friends, and drop the pretense the moment they're behind closed doors together. Still, one must do what's expected, so I paste on my best smile and make eye contact with King Reginald. Your Majesty, it's so nice to see you again. He takes my hand in his much larger one and shakes it. I am so glad we were able to arrange this lunch with Abigail while we're in country. Releasing my hand, he sweeps his toward his daughter. You two have not met yet, have you? Prince Phoenix, this is my daughter, Abigail. The fake smile aches my cheeks. Your Royal Highness, so lovely to meet you in person, finally. I've heard so many good things. She flutters her long, black, what must be false eyelashes at me, her cheeks coloring. Your Highness, the pleasure is all mine. It seems I've been waiting forever for this moment after all the stories father has relayed. I bet. More than likely, the girl has been counting down the days until she can have her shot at me. King Reginald claps me on the shoulder and squeezes. The last time I saw you, you were a wee child scrambling around under your mother's feet. I catch a flash of movement to my left, where Lev stands in just inside the doorway we entered through only moments ago. He raises a dark eyebrow at me, and I shake my head to indicate I'm fine. Touching a member of the royal family with such familiarity could get you killed in a lot of places, or at the very least thrown in the brig. But not King Reginald after so many years of friendship with mother and father, and definitely not when mother and father are trying to set me up with yet another perfect match. Abigail tips her head and flutters her eyelashes at me, her smile getting even bigger. I can practically see the crown she's after glittering behind her gaze. With two older brothers, Abigail will never see the throne in Grandania during her lifetime. The only way she will ever be a queen is if she marries someone on the throne or in line to inherit it. And her overly made-up eyes are set squarely on me. I keep my trained smile on her father and incline my head. That was a long time ago, sir. He issues a low, deep chuckle and places his hand on his belly. Quite right, quite right. Mother turns toward the long table already laid out with fresh fruit, pastries, and a dozen other dishes, far more than the five of us could ever eat, for an informal meal with the visiting dignitaries. Shall we? Father nods his agreement. Yes, yes, let's then enjoy our meal. He lowers himself into his chair at the head of the massive table and indicates everyone else should do the same. Reginald, I'm so happy you were able to make this trip out so we could discuss our mutual concerns in person. I bite back a laugh, but given the glare Mother sends me from across the table, apparently I didn't hide it well enough. This meeting has nothing to do with the growing unrest in Livolia or the support the protesters are getting from Reginald's countrymen. It has everything to do with Mother and Father hoping I'll actually like this one. Unfucking likely. They're all the same with their perfect hair, perfect smiles, practiced platitudes, zero personality, and one goal: secure a marriage with someone who will help their father's political position, mainly me. The last thing I care about right now is meeting this woman. Marrying me off isn't important. What is important was just briefly alluded to by father: the growing pro-democracy movement in Livonia that mirrors the one Reginald faced not that long ago in Gradania. Reginald reaches forward and takes a sip of the coffee from the cup in front of him. Yes, yes, it's a good idea for us to speak in person. Mother clears her throat and raises an eyebrow at father, though perhaps the lunch table is not the place to conduct this discussion. Father nods. Oh, yes, of course. He smiles. Now, Abigail, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself since we haven't had the pleasure of meeting before? No doubt both sets of parents would have tried to make a connection between us when we were far younger, but with me off at various boarding schools in other countries and Abigail doing whatever it is she did, our paths never seemed to cross. Until today. The young princess smiles at the invitation, then directs her attention toward me to answer. Well, I've always shared my father's interests in politics and chose political science as my major at university. I graduate next month. I take a bite of my quiche and chew, only listening to the bare minimum of the conversation necessary to appear interested and involved. This country is dancing along the precipice of something huge and potentially bad. And instead of focusing on that, mother and father are choosing to ignore it in favor of trotting me out for show like a prized horse to get me married off. Mother offers her kind smile and takes a bite of strawberry, chewing slowly before she swallows. That's lovely, dear. Abigail nods, squaring her shoulders in a way that's surely meant to make some point I'm apparently missing. I wanted to be prepared for a life of servicing the throne. I almost choke on the morsel in my throat, but manage to swallow it as her keen blue eyes assess my response. Jesus, could she be any more obvious? The woman might as well be on her knees under the table giving me a blowjob. Father smiles, apparently completely oblivious to the innuendo Abigail just openly hurled across the table at me. Public service is the most selfless endeavor, indeed. Wouldn't you agree, Finnick? I take a sip of my ice water to try to keep myself from coughing again. Yes, quite. Mother glares at me and tries to kick me under the table, but her shoe barely brushes my shin due to the distance between us. Be nice, she mouths at me. I might be 30 years old, but when the Queen demands something, compliance is mandatory. Be nice, be cordial, pretend you give a shit. All the directions I've been given my entire life at these types of meetings, since before I was even old enough for them to be trying to arrange a courtship with anyone who will help us politically. And I can't say I blame them. As one of the last remaining absolute monarchies in the world, we're at a huge disadvantage. Many other countries see us as old-fashioned, antiquated, and out of touch with modern society, which is why so many people have been pressing for reforms into a constitutional monarchy. Citizens want a say in where their tax money goes, in the laws that govern them, and want to elect officials to represent their interests. They see the democratic political process elsewhere as greener pastures and never contemplate the negatives that come with it. Mother and father have no intention of getting involved with or supporting or embracing such a major change, but Reginald has managed to lead his country in name while Parliament and the rest of the government handle the political decisions without any major disruptions to his reign. It was a major change for him and Grandania as a whole, but things worked out in his favor. His willingness to adjust the old ways have benefited him greatly in regard to his country's overall well-being. His people love him, and Abigail has grown up in the public eye the same way I have, so they have set me up with her, in hopes our people will see it as a progressive move to marry a royal from a constitutional monarchy country, since they won't take any steps toward that here. A band-aid to quell some of the rising tensions. It's nothing more than that, but it's important to them. Far more so than my happiness, apparently. Any other day I might play along and go through the motions in the manner expected of me, but this is the third setup in as many months, and it's becoming tedious and infuriating. Exasperated by the fact that they are more interested in forcing me to do what they think is right for Livolia, regardless of whether I might want to marry someone I actually like. Mother having successfully redirected the conversation, Reginald and father continued chatting about horses and international trade while I tried to avoid letting my eyes meet those of the girl practically itching to throw herself across the table at me. Again, mother cuts through my thoughts. Abigail, do you hope to have children someday? The desperate princess beams at mother, and I fight a gag response. The only thing good about children is getting to fuck so much to make them. If it weren't my duty to provide an heir to ensure the family maintains the monarchy, I wouldn't even consider it. Mother knows as such. It's as though she's baiting me, begging me to react. Well, mother shouldn't have poked me if she didn't want a response. Before Abigail can answer her question, I grin and turn toward the woman who gave me life. I do so appreciate how so many modern couples are taking the "we don't want children" stance and not letting society make them feel bad about their choice. Considering the overpopulation in so many countries and the vast drain on natural resources, it would seem not having children might be the responsible thing. Abigail gapes at me, and her father stops with the coffee cup midway to his mouth and stares, his heavy brow furrowed. Mother's glare could cut diamond, and it signals my cue to leave. Excuse me. I push away from the table and stand. Reginald and his daughter rise to their feet, concerned expressions, but I motion them to sit. Rather than offer an explanation for my abrupt departure, I turn and make my way to the door that will take me out into the parlor. Lev falls into step beside me and glances over his shoulder to ensure we're alone. What the hell was that? Were you trying to pick a fight with your mother in front of someone like Reginald Dahl? I snort and glance at my best friend and personal bodyguard. I wasn't trying to pick a fight. It's just the natural result of them setting me up again. He follows me into the private bathroom at the rear of the main floor of the palace, where I pause just outside the door and turn toward him. Lev shakes his head. You know I sympathize with your situation, but at some point you will have to get married. You will have to produce an heir. You can't put it off for forever. I grin at him and wiggle my eyebrows. I'll sure try and have fun doing it. He releases a heavy sigh and glances toward the bathroom. You can only buy so much time in there before your father sends Manuel looking for you. Lev knows exactly what I'm doing, and it's a simple reminder that freedom comes at a price and never lasts. I push open the door. Don't I know it? Letting it click closed behind me, I take a second to inhale a breath, then throw open the window, the one that had the alarm disconnected because I rigged it myself months ago, and climb through. My formal attire restricts my movements, but I can't change yet. If any of the guards see me on my way out of here, it has to look as though it's wholly acceptable for me to be on a stroll around the property, so that no one notices when I slip over the fence and make my break for it. Mother and father will be pissed I did this again, but I can't sit through another breakfast, can't handle another setup, can't handle being in the palace today. Maybe it'll take me doing something like this for them to finally realize I can't and won't be who they want me to be, no matter how hard they try to make me fit the mold.